"11 years. It's been 11 years since Skyrim was first released, and then re-released, and then re-released, and then re-released. And although the game is undoubtedly pretty large, the game hasn't received any actual content updates since December of 2012. Now, anyone who's even mildly aware of Skyrim as a game can tell you that the reason why the game continues to stay relevant to this day is because of its modding community. Anything from new UIs, new quests, new areas to explore, new weapons, new... whatever that is. The pool of fan-made content for this game is seemingly endless at this point. And if you haven't been able to tell about a video I made last year about one of such mods, or well, this video, I have dabbled in my fair share of Skyrim mods. And while yes, I do have plenty of fun and memorable experiences playing modded Skyrim, there has always been one mod that has always struck me as the pinnacle of great storytelling in a video game told by someone like a modder who isn't the game's developer, but has in their own way utilized the narrative tools given by the developer to create and tell a unique story based on the game's lore, while also combining this with great gameplay. I first played Vigilant back in 2019, and since then it has been living rent-free in my head for the better part of 3 years. And I'm talking free food, free rent kinda free. And I think what made this mod even better is that I came into it not expecting much. Like most people when they hear about this mod, or see some gameplay, they just come to think of it as Skyrim's version of Dark Souls. And while there is merit to that claim, and we'll get to that, I think it falls short in describing the game as a whole. It more so describes some gameplay and design choices by the developer. So I invite you all to embark with me on a journey to explore the story behind Vigilant, one of Skyrim's best mods you've probably never heard of. Unless you have. In that case, sorry for the clickbait. But before we can begin, I have to give a bunch of disclaimers. If any of you have watched my previous video playing on the Skyrim engine, you might remember something like this. Yep, my Skyrim folder is completely broken. Now, I have fixed most issues, and I can guarantee you that I am playing Skyrim on max graphics. On Legendary Edition. So some things will look kinda junky, in more ways than you can imagine. You might be wondering, why didn't I just download an ENB? And to answer that question, I want you to imagine me playing this mod on top of a Jenga tower. But instead of wooden stakes, it's actually mods. A light tilt, and the whole thing goes down, followed by me kicking and screaming. Hey Kotho, why couldn't you just format your folder? Anyway, before we get into the mod, I want to give some background information about the mod itself. Vigilant was first released in June of 2015, and at first it was only available in... wait for it... Japanese.
I eat ass!
And it has since been re-released, much like everything in Skyrim, and has even received translations in 8 different languages, English included. And although the modder has finished the mod and has since moved on to other ones, he still occasionally drops new content in the form of side activities. In fact, one of the reasons this video took me so long to get out was because the English translation for the mod had to be taken down to be updated. And on the topic of the English translation, one of the lead modders behind that team made an incredibly comprehensive Reddit post explaining some of the game's lore. And while it certainly doesn't provide an 100% coverage of all the game's secrets, it was a very helpful source in making this video. So the post will be in the description. Also, this mod requires knowledge into some of Skyrim's more obscure and, quite frankly, bizarre pieces of lore. So when we reach those points, I'm gonna have to pause, explain what's happening, and then move on. And with all that information finally out of the way, so to start things off, the mod is divided into 4 separate acts, and to begin the first act, called The Summoner, we simply have to go to an inn in Dawnstar and talk to a vigilant named Altano.
I like that look in your eyes. Would you like to join the Vigilance of Stendar? You look like you could hold your own.
Yes, I will join you.
I'm glad to hear this. We'll be counting on you from now on. May Stendar bless you. Follow me. I will guide you through the Temple of Stendar.
That was easy.
Following Altano from there will get us to the Vigilant's base of operations. There is, however, a small detail that hints to the fact that there is more going on here than meets the eye. Behind Altano there is an NPC called Orlando the Knowledgeable, and if we talk to this NPC, he mentions something very weird about Altano.
Oh, hello. Did you hear about the nightmares here in Dawnstar too, and came to visit because of that?
Do I know you?
No, it must be your imagination. This is the first time we have met. Nice to meet you. No? Well, are you interested in other people's dreams? Wouldn't you take a peek at them if you could?
Yes, I have to admit I am curious.
Then I'll lend you something interesting. You just need to poke people with this needle. You'll be able to see their dreams then. Oh, but there is a condition. The only dreams you will be able to see are the blood-stained ones. Dreams without a dreamer, and those who possess them are rare.
And where can I find someone with such curious dreams?
The terrible thing is that there is one within this very inn. A Vigilant of Stendar, a man called Altano. If you wish to see his dream, talk to him, and then, while on the road, stab him in the back with this needle. If you find this too troublesome, you can stab him right now, too. But if you get scared off and he reaches the temple, I will take the needle back.
Now, this is weird for quite a number of reasons, not least of which being the fact that if you do as the old man says, and if you do stab Altano with that dagger, this happens.
Yes, I know just what wares and weapons on for sale.
Greetings. I knew you would do it. No, this is still merely an entrance. When you look into a dream, you must go through this dark hole, walk the path of bloodied faith. Here, even the humble priests and knights preaching justice could do nothing but build a mountain of corpses. A wasteland awaits you, nothing but a wasteland. Don't forget my words if you don't want it to swallow you up.
Continuing down this path, there is a door that takes us all the way to Act 4, skipping 3 acts along the way. Now, I'm not gonna focus on the word diarrhea Orlando said, or concepts like dreams without a dreamer, Act 4, Orlando, or whatever the fuck just happened, as this will all become relevant in future acts. So, reloading an old save, and off we go to Vigilant HQ.
This is the Temple of Stendar, one of our bases in Skyrim. You should greet Thorandir. He's the keeper in this temple.
Ah, so you're the novice Altana recruited. Yes, I like the look in your eyes, and I can feel a strong will in you as well. But enough with the small talk. I'm sure you're not here to be bored with the stories of an old man. Altana will take care of you for now. If you have questions, go to him.
So apparently, just like that, we are now Vigilants of Stendar. Your first duty as a Vigilant is to investigate a murder mystery in Whiterun. This is your standard first mission dummy dum dum quest, there is nothing special about it. I do like the vampire's pickup line though.
Would you like my sweet rolls? They're delicious. Thank you very much. Could you close your eyes for a moment? I'm very shy.
Boy, what the fuck going on in Miami, bro?
Another interesting piece of information is that after you kill the vampire, you can find a seemingly useless piece of red stone on her. Keep any information about red stones in mind, as they will become more relevant in the future.
We lie! We lie!
So after you deal with the vampire, you report back to Altano and tell him that the vampire was in fact a prostitute, and he replies with this.
Ah, so that's why you look so refreshed. Honestly, I expected something like this from you. Anyway, a prostitute. Well, our work here is done. I think I will look for some kind of refreshment as well.
In the inn, Altano informs us about a rogue summoner who has went out of their way to summon different demons, some of whom are probably the NPCs behind us.
A few hours ago, a house outside city walls was destroyed by a Daedra. Reports say people heard it laughing, and that it's still in there. A woman who may have summoned it has also been seen there. Our mission is to defeat that Daedra and seize its summoner. Let's go.
After you kill the first demon spawned, the summoner escapes back to Windhelm. So you and Altano head to the inn in Windhelm, where the summoner has summoned another Daedra. There is nothing particularly unique story-wise about this mission. It's just a bunch of go there, kill that. But I do want to point something funny out. You see, the translation team for this mod had a difficult time replicating the voices of the original Skyrim NPCs. So their solution was to cut up existing dialogues so they can use them for the mod. And when I mean cut, I mean YouTube poop style cut.
Leave it to us. We'll take care of that matter immediately. But how did the Daedra appear? Was it summoned?
Yes. A woman casting spells without asking her permission. Next thing you know, someone gets hurt. What manner of magic is this? By the gods. I don't even know what to say.
Do you know where that woman is now?
Nah, I don't think so. Best we all forget about her.
I'm cutting wood.
Understood.
I pretend
We
there's
appreciate
an
your
Imperial
cooperation.
soldier's head on the
Come on, novice. We have to get rid of that Daedra.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Also, I don't know what happened, but as soon as I entered the scene, my Skyrim's physics engine decided to hit the floor and bust a move, which only added to the comedy of this scene. After that, Altano informs you about a man in Kynesgrove that can seemingly turn people insane just by having them look at his eye.
As Vigilants of Stendar, we can't overlook something like that. Go to Kynesgrove and check out this rumor.
However, a quick dialogue with that man, and he reveals that he has no intention of turning someone insane, and that the only reason why he has that eye is because the summoner we were chasing has cursed him.
I lost a bet to some woman. She gouged out my eye and shoved this strange stone in its place. After that, everyone who looked me in the eyes went mad. I'm so tired.
Reporting this back to Altano, and his response seems to show a different picture of the Vigilants of Stendar, and their perception of Stendar's mercy.
That man, Balor, must be sent to Stendar. What do you think will happen if that man loses control of his eye? Many people will suffer, don't you understand?
And for those of you that don't know, Stendar is supposed to be the god of forgiveness and mercy in the Elder Scrolls universe. So you go back to Kynesgrove, kill the innocent man Altano told you to, and then go back to him, only for him to suggest you have a drink so you can forget what you have just done. After that, you both go to a place called the Beacon of Stendar in Riften, where you meet another important character, Jacob. And Altano seems to be very cordial with Jacob, as they seem to be more than just co-workers.
Don't stand on ceremony, Altano. We're both vigilants here.
True.
From there, Jacob tells you that the summoner has summoned another Daedra in Riften this time, so you and Altano go to the inn there and kill it.
Deja vu, I just been in this place before.
Reporting back to Jacob, and this is what he has to say.
Yes, we chased her down into the Ratway, but couldn't catch her. She has a bodyguard clad in ebony armor. That mercenary is terribly strong. He broke through our formation head on. I've just sent a pursuit team after them both. I just hope everyone returns safely. You should investigate Ratway. There is some evidence of Daedra summoning left behind.
And just like that, off you go to the Rift and Ratways to find more clues about the summoner. And yet they seem to be nowhere to be found. What is there to be found is a mad Khajiit called Giovanni.
Giovanni is looking for Campanera. His precious Campanera, where is she?
Now, Giovanni's voice acting, and in fact the voice acting for all the NPCs for this scene, was absolutely on point. So I'm just gonna let them take it from here. You performed a Daedra summoning ritual, am I right?
Giovanni tried with sweet skooma and liver of a skeever. But nothing happened. Giovanni did what the glowing woman told him and nothing happened. Why?
Campanera, what are you talking about?
Giovanni noticed. Giovanni is very smart. The liver of a skeever was not good enough. Giovanni noticed. But perhaps the liver in front of him is good. Good enough. Giovanni says so. Campanera will also say so.
Opening Giovanni's inventory, and we can find that he too had a piece of redstone on him. Shortly after, we pass out and we have a flashback of Giovanni's memories. Now, flashbacks are gonna be something very common throughout this mod. It is something that will be happening time and time again after we kill someone of interest, and I will talk more about why that is and why they happen when it becomes more relevant.
Giovanni. Giovanni. Wake up, Giovanni. It is morning. Get up, Giovanni. Breakfast is ready. This one made your favorite tomato soup today. It will get cold if you do not eat it quickly. Today's soup is delicious. This one is sure you will like it. Are you still asleep? You said you will stop, Skooma. You promised. Enough. Soup is getting cold.
Pretty pelt, such a pretty pelt, so very, very pretty. It is company rare, precious company rare. Martho and company rare will be together soon. Company rare will not look at Martho. But Martho wants to be with company rare. Jealous, Giovanni? Jealousy makes one ugly. Martho used to be ugly, but no more. Company rare is with him now. Goodbye, Giovanni. Martho and company rare are going on a journey. With company rare, Martho will not be cold, even in wintry Skyrim.
Now, after watching this scene, I remember this being the point when I first played the mod, when I thought to myself, damn, this mod's pretty good. The enemy here is called Empusa, and she more or less symbolizes Giovanni's descent into madness after he saw his wife turning into the Louis Vuitton winter collection. Waking up from the dream, and it seems like Marceau is also in the sewers.
Company rare is warm. Marceau is happy. Very happy. No! Khajiit will never do this! Marceau and company rare are finally together! Why do you disturb us? Marceau hates you! You smell like jealousy, like Giovanni! Marceau hates Giovanni!
After we deal with him, we are told to unite Giovanni and his wife back together in death.
And you know what? Don't be a sussy baka. That's all I have to say for sure.
By making him wear his dead wife. We report back to Aldano, who by the way has been doing absolutely nothing throughout all this.
Indeed. I'm glad to have such an excellent partner. Let's return to Stendar's beacon. Perhaps the summoner's been caught already.
Together you go back to the beacon, but this time the vigilants there are all dead.
Stop. Not a step further. I'm only doing my job. Is that a good enough reason for you? Those chasers. I killed them. They're probably food for trolls somewhere now. Then I will cut you down like all the others. If you don't want to die, leave. Leave! I am sure you have someone who waits for your safe return.
Of course we kill him. On his body we find 2 notes, presumably by his daughter and wife. And oh boy, they're in for a surprise. I am sure that this is definitely the one and only time we will inflict pain and suffering upon this poor family.
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
Inside the beacon of Stendar we find Jacob, the only member of the Vigilance who has survived.
We were attacked by the summoner. Everyone is dead but me. Again. I'm the only one who survived. The Daedra called her Bull. Such a sinister name. She must be serving Moloch Baal. Her goal can only be the altar underground.
What do you mean? There's an altar under the beacon?
There is an ancient altar of Moloch Baal under the beacon. She's trying to do something terrible. We must stop her.
Help Master Jacob. I'll scout ahead.
Moloch Baal must have given her power. Her magicka is immensely powerful, nigh infinite. She looks exactly like my dead wife. Just another trap by Moloch Baal, I'm sure. Daedric Prince of Domination and Enslavement. Many Vigilants were corrupted by him. I'm one of them. I was dying and he appeared to me and offered to heal me in exchange for my wife's soul. And I accept it. It is my greatest regret. I will never forget the look in her eyes.
There are several questions that can be derived from what he just told us, but let's keep going.
Joshua. Joshua, is that you? I'm glad to see you. Where were you hiding? Thank you, Joshua. Your words are kind. But I can't stop now.
At the altar, we find Jacob's wife, and after a brief fight, we kill her and stop the ritual. In her inventory, we find yet another red stone, as well as a journal, which says absolutely nothing we don't already know, so there's no point in me reading it. After that, Altano picks up the mace and tells you to go kill some witches while he's trying to sort the situation out. So you go to the witch's den, and let's pause here. I know this is completely irrelevant to the story, but there is a body of a man called Clayman the Witch Hunter on your way to the den. Again, completely irrelevant to what we're doing here, but this is actually an Easter egg reference to Vince's newest mod called Glenmoril. And well, if Vigilant is inspired by Dark Souls, then I'm pretty sure you can all see where this mod is inspired from. So we go to the shack, talk to the witches, and then receive another dose of red pills.
My daddy is very strong. He's the best swordsman in Wayrest. But he hasn't been feeling well for a long time. Mommy says Daddy is sick. So we're making a potion to cure him.
I'm preparing medicine. I make my living with alchemy. I'm just desperate to solve a curse plaguing my husband.
That's right, they're not witches at all. They're just a forsaken family in which the father got cursed. No idea who this fatherman can be though. But alas, we remember what Altano told us about not giving people the mercy of Stendar, and so down they go. But this time, it's different. Upon killing them, we fade away and we receive something called the Curse of Stendar. It seems like someone finally had enough of people committing atrocities in his name. Now outside the house, we can find a Glenmoril witch. Now this witch has a lot to say, so I'm just gonna let her spit it all out.
Stendar is getting old and senile. To curse his own servant. Looks like there's something wrong, not only with his eyes, but also with his mind.
Who are you?
Me. I am Rada, a Glenmoril witch. Iverstead is mine. All people and beasts here belong to me.
Why do I feel so heavy, so out of breath? What have you done to me?
I didn't do anything. I just watched from the very beginning. Really ugly what you have done here. You didn't just take away the life of an innocent, but also that of a child. Well, you are cursed now. Serves you right. If you serve the god of justice, you are finished.
Oh, that's just perfect. So how can I break free of this curse?
Didn't you listen to me? I told you, it's too late. You are finished.
So with that all revelation out of the way, we head back to the Vigilance headquarters. Entering the headquarters, and this is what happens.
Well, well, well. Look who finally decided to show up. And it seems even Stendar has forsaken you. There's no reason to explain anything to you. You will die now. Genghis, send this soul to Molag Bal. I must return to the altar and continue with the ritual.
Yes, Altano has went completely mad and has killed every single Vigilant, except the librarian who just barely escaped. So we follow him back to the beacon of Stendar, which we now just apparently accept that there is a altar devoted to a Daedric prince just below the beacon. Now inside the altar chamber we get this cutscene.
Yes, my lord, I've been waiting for you. I've corrupted so many souls for you. Please, grant me a place in your realm.
Child of Stendar, kneel before me and obey. Surrender your soul to me. Do this, and I promise you a swift death.
Here we're presented with two options. We can either submit to Molag Bal, which would take us to chapter 4, similarly to how it would happen if we had listened to Orlando at the beginning. The second option is to fight back against Molag Bal.
Mortal, you dare to turn down my merciful offer. I hope you keep this spirit, even when dying, mortal. Now, scream for me! Beg for mercy!
After the fight, we talk to Altano, and this is what he has to say about this event.
Please, forgive me. Thank you.
So we destroy the maze, and Molag Bal's influence finally leaves the altar, but not before giving us this ominous final message.
Child of Stendar, I will be watching you, always. If even a spot of corruption touches your soul, the gates to my realm will open wide for you.
And with that, we leave the beacon and head all the way back to Vigilant HQ. I want to make two last notes about this encounter before we leave. First one being that, for anyone who knows anything about Elder Scrolls lore, this wasn't Molag Bal. At least it wasn't his full power or his usual form. This was more or less a puppet created by Molag Bal to influence the player. Second note is that if we loot Altano's body, we won't find a redstone. Instead, we will find Altano's journal. In it, Altano describes that he has no idea who he was prior to joining the Vigilance of Stendar, and that Jacob was the man who saved him and brought him to the Vigilance. All he knows is that he just woke up one day in the mountains of Skyrim and was found by Jacob. So we go back to Vigilant HQ, report Altano's death and become the new keeper, because we suffer from main character syndrome. And just like that, the quest ends, and with it, the first act of Vigilance of Stendar. So I feel like a brief reconsolidation of what just happened is necessary before we can move on. So what we know so far is that there is this guy named Altano, who was recruited into the Vigilance of Stendar without having any idea about who he was prior to joining them. Altano then went mad, killed everyone, we killed him, and then we became the new leaders of the Vigilance. There are also a lot of unexplained phenomena taking place, such as the red stones found in the bodies of people, and oh yeah, the fact that below the beacon of Stendar there is a literal statue to the god of domination. Yeah, that was kind of odd. In addition, I was gonna mention this after Act 2 where it becomes a lot more obvious and a lot more relevant, but guys, the Vigilance of Stendar are useless. They are trying to kill Daedra, yet they have no idea how Daedra work. Some of them don't even know what something like a Wabbajack is.
What in oblivion is Wabbajack? Do you know anything about it?
Yet they are incredibly dismissive, and they often brush things aside while also allowing just about everyone to join their organization. And lastly, they are incredibly easy to corrupt. They are so completely terrible at what it is they're trying to do that even Stendar doesn't like them. At best they can be viewed as failed vigilantes, and at worst they are actually a public enemy. But still there's a lot about their backstory and their true motives which we don't know about. And this is where Act 2 begins, the Bloody Matron. Act 2 begins exactly where Act 1 ended. After we become Keeper, a guard from Windhelm comes to HQ and asks for our help regarding a mystery where people in the dungeons are going missing, leaving behind them only a trail of blood. Going to the steward of Windhelm and he tells you exactly what the guard told you, but his dialogue is cut up, so it sounds funnier.
I think we may have a problem in the dungeon. Lots of prisoners just disappear, can't find a trace of them. Only the trail of blood. And as if that wasn't enough, yesterday, my guards disappeared as well. Nobody saw anything useful. That's why I'm sending you. That's what I wanted to hear. I noticed the trail of blood in the underground dungeon. We should get started now.
Going to the dungeons, and the thing that strikes out the most is a suspicious statue of a young woman with a dagger in her chest. When you inquire about this statue to the steward, he has this to say.
Now that I think on it, it was years ago. Lots of prisoners gone as well. I don't know, really. Considering how the Great War ended, commander of the guards here in Windhelm was in control. Now I remember. Your kind were happy to lend a hand as well. Not now. At least not anymore. It might be over in the temple of yours.
So apparently, not only has this happened before, but back then the Vigilants also had put a stop to this phenomenon. So the player goes back to HQ and digs up the old documents, and this is what those documents have to say. All prisoners in the jail have disappeared, the guards are missing as well. We captured a vampire in the dungeon, 2 dead and over a dozen injured on our side. Bodies are to be cremated, and the injured treated by a healer. If any of them show any signs of infection with vampirism, they are to be disposed of immediately. Requested vigilant assistance from the Temple of Stendarr. The next day. Completed cremation of the dead. No signs of infection with vampirism. Vigilants of Stendarr arrived. Their investigation concluded that the Maiden statue is the source of the vampire attacks. We also started interrogating the captured vampire on how to open the hidden door behind the statue. Again the next day. The vampire told us how to open the hidden door. He did not survive the interrogation. Found out the statue reacts to vampire blood. We opened the statue with the dead vampire's blood and sent an investigation team through it. The team comprises of 7 vigilants and 13 guards. Half a day after the investigation started, screaming resounded from the Maiden statue and it sealed itself shut. We applied the vampire blood to it again, but it won't open anymore. The status of the investigation team is unknown. The next day, found one of the investigators unconscious outside the city walls. His name was Jacob. He says the investigation team was killed in the tunnel's collapse, and that it also destroyed the vampire's way in. Since the Maiden statue is sealed shut, we terminated this investigation. So, all this is quite a revolution, not only because we now know the reasons for the disappearances, but also because now we know the circumstances under which Jacob sold off his wife to Molag Bal. But then again, this also creates other questions like, why did Jacob lie about the dungeon collapsing, when it clearly hasn't? Going back to Windhelm, we report this to the steward and use the vampire blood to access the entrance. And this time, the entrance actually opens. The first thing that can be observed inside the dungeon is the body of a man named Joshua. Now, if you remember from Act 1, Joshua was the master to Jacob. And the note on his body reads as follows. The door sealed behind us. I guess this is my reward for abandoning my friends and trying to escape. I was so confident that I could face off any vampire. And then I couldn't even stand before her. All I could do was run. She was waiting for us. Stendarr, this is all your fault. How could we do what even you couldn't have done? I hear a lullaby. She's here. I'm sure of it. I need to run somewhere far away. Out of her reach. So apparently there is something or someone down here that was waiting on the Vigilant's arrival so he can trap them down here along with it. And whatever that thing is, it is apparently stronger than Stendarr himself. This also means that Jacob also lied about the status of the group that ventured into the dungeon down with them, as it seems that several of them survived for at least some time. And the door actually closed because whatever haunted them down there wanted them to stay. Going deeper into the dungeon, and this section is just a huge labyrinth. The question is no longer if you're gonna get lost. The question is, when are you gonna get lost and for how long? Also, big oopsie on my part. I forgot to upgrade my mage light, so I had to navigate the entire place using torches in 2022. The dungeon itself is infested with skeevers, blood fiends and feral vampires, who have probably been down here for at least 2 decades at this point. Now, going deeper, we can actually find an orc vampire who is wearing an amulet of Stendarr and wears clothes identical to those of a keeper of the Vigilance. Going down the well the keeper was guarding, and we can find other members of the group that either became vampires or became vampire food. Killing them gives us the key to the old Windhelm city, an ancient underground city infested with vampires just below modern Windhelm. Now, I gotta be honest, Windhelm City looks incredible, thematically and visually. Just the idea of there being an underground city full of vampires just beneath a modern city sounds like the dream of anyone currently going through a goth phase. But also the visuals for this place look pretty good, at least for 2015 standards. The streets are filled with debris, presumably because of earthquakes. There is this thick fog on the ceiling due to the campfires the vampires are making, and the architecture looks like something I would make in Minecraft on Halloween. Navigating through this place, and we end up somewhere called the Asylum, a place full of vampires that went completely feral due to lack of food or, well, living conditions. But there is also another NPC down here, a man by the name of Thingol, who is the only vigilant to not go feral or become a servant of whoever runs this underground circus.
It was her. She was here. The Blood Matron. We fought her, but we were powerless. We couldn't do anything. Those of us who survived were forced to drink her blood and were turned into vampires.
You mentioned the Blood Matron. Who is that?
A Nedic maiden, violated by Molag Bal. She was the first vampire. We found her, asleep underground.
Do you know what happened to the other vigilants?
Everyone who's survived has been turned into a vampire. Her blood drove them all mad.
it might still be possible to cure your vampirism.
It's too late. I can feel the thirst for blood getting stronger, and the desire to be with her. Every night, I dream of her, crying tears of blood. She's been crying ever since. Ever since she was violated by Molag Bal. Even now, as she sleeps, I can feel her grief has become a part of me.
Why are you locked up?
All of those who refused her blood are imprisoned here. We will stay here until we give in.
Is there anything else I can do for you?
I want you to kill me. I want to die before I become a bloodthirsty monster.
Then I will grant you Stendarr's mercy.
Thank you. Do it quickly. I don't know how much longer I can resist the thirst.
So now we know that the person Joshua was referring to in his letter was LeMay, the first vampire, and Molag Bal is again behind all this. Continuing our descent on this place takes us to the final resting place of LeMay. But before we reach the Blood Matron's chamber, we meet another Vigilant named Arundel. Now, unlike all the other Vigilants, Arundel willingly joined LeMay and became her devotee. He also wields 2 rusty swords. So you all know what that means, right? Yes, unfortunately, after the Dragonborn fought Arundel, he contracted tetanus and died shortly after. No, but for real, there is something interesting about this character. See, on him there is a note that says that Jacob was actually killed during the battle with LeMay. One other interesting piece of intel we get from this note is that the Blood Matron had a steward named Bal. This character is irrelevant right now, but he's gonna become essential later, so keep him in mind. In the Blood Matron's chamber, we see LeMay resting in her coffin and a visage of Molag Bal looking at her and then disappearing, which is messed up on several levels. Approaching the coffin, and we find out that this was actually a trap, as we are immediately stabbed and thrown into LeMay's illusion. Now, in her illusion, LeMay mentions that you are both going to her father's castle.
We're going to my father's castle. Have you forgotten him too? You've already met before.
I wonder who that might be.
We meet again, child of Stendarr. Molag Bal welcomes you. Don't you want to be with this girl forever? Her happiness is the will of Stendarr, too. There is no need to abandon your faith. Just take heart and go on. Nothing more is needed.
Here, there are again 2 options, as Molag Bal tempts us to have pity on LeMay and accept her into our hearts so that she may finally find some happiness. Obviously, there are several layers of hypocrisy behind this. But anyway, if you agree to accept LeMay into your heart, you are immediately baptized as LeMay's kin and you are immediately transported to Act 4. Rejecting LeMay's gift, however, makes her very unhappy. It is at this moment that she describes the player as cold, just like him.
Everyone will be happy for us. Your eyes, so cold. You're just like him.
Yet who that him is exactly is unknown yet. It might be referring to Molag Bal, but then again the following line doesn't support that idea.
Will you answer my love with a dagger to the heart too?
That dagger does not belong to Molag Bal, as after you defeat LeMay and break the illusion, the dagger on her chest is called the Bard's Dagger. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Molag Bal has a lot of talents. However, I don't think being a bard is one of them, at least not in this canon. Now, moving up the stairs, we actually find Jacob's body, confirming that the person we met on Act 1 was not Jacob, or at least not the entirety of him. Okay, if I don't explain this here, this is gonna become a lot more complicated as we move on, so for the record, it seems to be the case that when one makes a contract or becomes a servant of Molag Bal, their soul is then intertwined with his existence. This is gonna become a lot more clear as we move on, but it is essentially the reason why people like LeMay, who as we can clearly see is dead, continues to create illusions and misguide people in Molag Bal's name. It is also the reason why Jacob can essentially respawn outside the city of Windhelm after his initial death so he can continue to advance Molag Bal's plans. And if you need more proof that this is in fact what's happening, I think this ought to convince you.
Rise, LeMay. Rise and sink your fangs into the flesh of this mortal, and I will let you dream again.
And thus LeMay's body is finally set free of Molag Bal's influence. Anyway, after that you go back to the store, you tell him, hey yo bro, I fixed it, he gives you 2 kisses on the cheeks, and with that Act 2 finally ends. Okay, so the plot has undoubtedly thickened here, so let's investigate. The Vigilants continue to be these just outright incompetent mass of people. There are now mentions of other characters such as LeMay, that bald character, and the bard that stabbed LeMay, which seems to make no sense given what we know about LeMay's story so far, either from Thingol or from other sources of Elder Scrolls lore. And finally, I feel like this section reveals a lot about Molag Bal's intentions regarding the Dragonborn. See, until now, it could be assumed that he just wanted the Dragonborn as his servant, or he just wanted to kill him for the fancies and giggles. But just now, we were passed out in front of him, and he just let us be. It seems therefore that he doesn't really care about us serving him, and he doesn't actually want to kill us. He more or less just wants us to go to his realm and do something there. And this dive, spoilers, is gonna become inevitable after Act 3, Child of Oblivion. I gotta come clean here, Act 3 is probably my favorite. The whole thing has a completely different gameplay than the other acts, and the story behind it is told in such a way where it feels more like a murder mystery, and that's probably because it is. After going back to Vigilant HQ, the librarian informs us about our next task.
Some time ago, a Vigilant was sent to the mansion of a noble from Koral. Now we've received a letter from him, asking for reinforcements. I wanted to send him a few Vigilants immediately, but...
Do you think something went wrong in his mansion?
Letters take longer to arrive than usual, what with the Civil War and everything, but it's been months since he was sent there. Also, the Vigilant hasn't returned yet, and I fear it may already be too late. I want to leave this decision to you. What should we do?
What you answer here is basically irrelevant. You're gonna go to the mansion one way or another.
Alright. Please, be careful. I will prepare a carriage in front of the temple to take you to the mansion.
What's the name of the Vigilant we sent there?
Bartholo. He was sent before you joined us, so you've never met.
I see. Do you know what his mission was?
He was supposed to investigate a series of mysterious deaths in the mansion. The Rondir thought they were just coincidences, but Bartholo disagreed with him. I remember how they quarreled about this. This is why it was only Bartholo who went to the mansion.
Do you know anything about the noble from Koral?
He's from the Bruant family and earned his fortune by breeding military dogs for the Legion. He also holds a seat in the council. The family consists of Lord Marcus, his wife Julia, and their son Julius. Lady Julia died last year, however. They found her burnt body at the shore of Lake Ilinalta. I prepared some documents, so you can read them on your way there.
Reading the report, it says as follows. Seeing bodies on the surface of Lake Ilinalta is not an uncommon sight ever since the Civil War began. However, there is something unusual about the body we found this time, which is why we should increase our patrols around the lake. Victim, Julia Brennand, identified by the ring she was wearing. Cause of death, severe burns. A curse was placed on her corpse, and it was still burning from within when we found it. Additionally, its blood turned acidic and poisonous, killing everything it came into contact with. Lifting the curse proved unnaturally simple. There was no resistance to the dispelling, suggesting that the caster of the curse let it be lifted. Since there was a possibility that the caster may still want to use the corpse for further rituals, we purified it with the light of Stendarr and scattered the ashes. Damn. You know, this might be a tragedy and all, but I can guarantee you that family dinner tables will never again be boring or lack any conversation topics. I can just imagine, every time there's an awkward silence, someone will eventually break it by saying something like, "Hey, remember what happened to Julia? Yeah, what up with that?" Taking the carriage and going to the family estate, we are immediately greeted by the family butler, an Elliot elf called Ball.
I don't know, it looks kind of suspect. Could be an imposter,
Obviously, this is quite a cultural shock for a number of reasons. Not least of whom being that Elliots are supposed to be extinct by this point, and also the fact that this guy has the exact same name as LeMay Stewart. And talking to him, he seems quite quick to dismiss himself, presumably so he won't arouse suspicion. You are an Elliot, aren't you? I thought your people were gone.
Like the rest of my people, I am just a shadow, a remnant, nothing worth talking about.
Bal, that's an ominous name.
It's not that unusual. It's a common name for an elf.
We received a letter from Bartholo, the Vigilant that was sent here.
Master Bartholo is also waiting for us inside. Please, come in.
Going inside the mansion, and congratulations, you have successfully installed Amnesia, The Dark Descent on Skyrim. Better whip out that 480p camera and start making jumpscare reactions for that thumbnail.
Hello? What is that? Oh fuck, I spilled my drink.
No, but for real. I'm saying this because when we enter the mansion, there is no Bartholo at all. It's just Marcus's dead body with a key and a note that reads, "I can't stop crying. All I have is hate, yet I am drowning in tears. My beloved son, Julius, is no longer human. He is a child of oblivion. It's all my fault. I must take responsibility." Damn, puberty must have hit him hard. If you notice when we enter the mansion, there is also the figure of a child standing on the window. This will become a recurring feature throughout this act. The child figure will always appear in front of us, almost guiding us through the mansion. And this might have actually been a good scare, but the figure is T-posing, and I can't for the life of me take T-posing seriously after Fallout 76 happened. Venturing deeper into the mansion, and the first noteworthy thing that can be found, well, except the child stalking us, are the journals of both Marcus and Bartholo. Bartholo's journal reads as follows: "The head of the Brennant family, Marcus, visited our Temple of Stendar. He requested an investigation of unfortunate accidents which happened recently in his mansion. Marcus suspects that the cause of these accidents might be some kind of witchcraft. As far as we could tell, there was no connection between any of the accidents, only a series of unfortunate coincidences. Keeper Thorondil holds the same opinion. However, as with the story about a necromancer lurking in the basement of a mansion in Anvil, I think there may be more to this. After consulting with Thorondil, we decided that I should investigate the mansion. A month has gone by since I have arrived at the mansion, and no accidents have happened yet. I wonder whether my worries were unfounded. No, I can't afford to let down my guard. If there are any evil spirits or Daedra here, they may be cautious around me, and when hiding for now, I will continue this investigation for another month. The next month. Butler Lamthon, maid Patricia, and cook Samuel have all died tragically. Unfortunately, I could not prevent their deaths. However, their demise confirms my theory. The evil spirits in this house were only hiding, and then, when they could no longer resist their thirst for blood, they committed new atrocities. But they foolishly left some traces behind. I noticed faint remains of magicka around the victims' bodies. The traces led to the basement stair room, where I found a hideous totem. From the shape of it, I guess it belongs to Molag Bal. A powerful blood curse had been placed on it. Obviously, this is the cause of all the misfortunes. I intend to dispel this totem tonight. I have successfully lifted the curse of the totem. It rusted and its devastating magical power fainted, but the curse placed on it was astonishing. It was so full of anger and hatred, it made me sick. Hatred in its purest form. The blood curse was very similar to the curses of the ancient Aliots. Judging by the nature and power of the curse, its caster must be paying a high price. The most frightening thing is the caster's determination. What could drive someone so far? I'm getting old. Dispelling that single totem exhausted all my strength, and judging by the power of the curse, there must be at least 4 or 5 more. I can't take care of them by myself, so I requested assistance from the temple. I sent a letter with the fastest carrier at the estate, and it should arrive at the temple by tomorrow morning. The reinforcements should then arrive in 2 or 3 days. In the meantime, I am taking a day off to rest. The next day, I'm being overwhelmed with fear. My hands are trembling, and I can't stop sweating. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have tried to dispel that curse before the reinforcements from the temple arrived. Dispelling was not complete. The totem regained its evil glow and started making an eerie sound. I can feel its renewed curse crawling towards me. The doors and windows disappeared and everything fainted away in a thick fog. There is no way out. I can't escape. Stendar, give me strength. Please give me the courage to face off this horror. Now, Marcus's journal reads as follows. I visited the Temple of Stendar in Skyrim to find out the cause of the unfortunate accidents in my mansion. The Vigilants I talked to truly listened to my story. They were very different from the officials in the Imperial City. The temple will send a skilled vigilant named Bartholo to help. Both Julius and I are beginning to suffer because of these continued incidents. Julius hasn't said a word since his mother vanished. Even if this case is solved, will we ever have peace and quiet again? I can't stop worrying. A month has passed since Bartholo arrived at the mansion. The series of unfortunate incidents seem to have completely stopped. I don't hear crawling from the hallways in the middle of the night anymore. We haven't had such peaceful days since Julia's disappearance. However, this does not mean that my worries have ceased. But it should be fine now. The temple has sent us a skilled vigilant. I am sure there's nothing to worry about. Julius has been acting strangely for the last month. He's restless and seems to be avoiding Bartholo. Is he shy? He hasn't acted like this before. A week later, the butler, Lamthorn, is dead. His own dogs ate him alive, and the scene was horrible. The dogs were barking madly and no one could get them under control. However, they calmed down when Bartholo rushed to the scene and casted some spells. He said someone cast a frenzy spell on them. Who could have done that? There's no one skilled in magic in my estate. 3 days later, the maid Patricia killed herself. Bal, the other butler, found her dead, hanging in her room. She always seemed fine to me, and she wasn't struggling with anything. Why in oblivion did she do this? This guy is really slow at picking up hints. A week later, the cook, Samil, went insane. He attacked me with a meat cleaver, but I got away without a scratch, thanks to Bartholo. I had Samuel restrained and confined to the storeroom. I hear crawling from the hallways again. It sounds even louder than before. Whatever it is, it's a bad omen. I should tell Bartholo about it tomorrow. Samil is dead. He was eaten alive by a horde of skeevers. It's all getting worse. I think Bartholo knows something, but he won't talk to me. Is there a reason why he wouldn't tell me anything? 3 days later, something's wrong with Bartholo. He looks exhausted and somehow distant today. What happened? Julius has been spending a lot of time in Julia's room lately. Does he still miss his mother? The next day, Bartholo didn't leave his room today. I tried to speak to him, but there was no reply. He must have been still asleep. I hope he's not sick. Julius has been playing in front of Bartholo's room. He was avoiding Bartholo for a long time. Didn't even want to approach his room. What changed his mind? So that was informative. Surely enough, behind those journals there's one of the totems Bartholo mentioned about. Interact with the totem and congratulations, you have successfully installed Silent Hill 2 on Skyrim. That is because if you interact with the totem, you're taken into this weird dungeon with rusty walls and blood everywhere. The rooms are full of cages, and all the enemies have something to do with either human flesh, the human anatomy, and more specifically, the human female anatomy. Inside one of these rooms, we find a woman named Heather, who was apparently one of the maids that got killed in the accidents inside the mansion. The letter on her body doesn't mention anything really important, but her presence here confirms that she was used to create this blood ritual. If you remember Bartholo's journal, it mentions that a high price must be paid for the curses to be implemented. Well, it seems to be the case that the accidents were actually made to look like accidents, when in actuality, there were sacrifices for these curses. Entering the final room of this dungeon always has like an embodiment of one of those curses, and killing it allows us to break the curse and return to the overworld. The next totem is found in the maid's room and it's called the Totem of Corruption. Also, I forgot to mention a small observation regarding the enemy female models. If you notice, some of them have a fat belly, which is also wide open. Now, the final boss of this dungeon displays something that will become very common throughout this mod: over-the-top character design. Just look at this thing. It has a skinless body, spikes for a head, and holds a corpse for a weapon. I feel like if I ever made a death metal band and I needed a mascot, I would just ask Vince's permission to use this. And if he says no, I'll just still use it. Anyway, kill him, take the weapon because of course you will, and dispel the curse. The next notable event happens when we enter Julius's room and receive a key and another part of Marcus's journal, which reads: "My wife Julia has grown cold to me. She won't even look me in the eyes, let alone talk to me. Has she found about my infidelity? No, she couldn't have." The next month, Julius and Julia disappeared. Servants searched all around the mansion, but they haven't found them yet. They found Julius in the forest. He was so scared he couldn't even speak. Julia is still missing. 9 days later, a Vigilant of Stendar visited the mansion. His name was Jacob. He brought my wife's ring with him. According to him, Julia had been found floating in the Lake Ilinalta to the north. A fisher found her. Strangely, her body was burnt. The water around it was boiling, and large amounts of dead fish and birds floated around it. Jacob said her body was still burning from the inside. What depraved sorcerer could have done this to her? He said he put out the flames inside her body and buried her deeply. He found a ring with my wife's and my name among her ashes, and they came all the way from Skyrim to bring this to me. The news of her death saddened me, but I shed no tears for her. Did the love I swore for her before Mara fade so completely? I wonder why, but now I'm relieved. Julius hasn't spoken since the day they found him in the forest. Finding out about his mother's death will only sadden him even more. I won't tell him about Julia's death. The next month, the maid, Heather, fell down the stairs and broke her neck. Her hometown was in Valenwood, Sylvanar I think. 10 gold should be enough to send her body there. She was always a clumsy girl, but never to this extent. Julius didn't even react, even though he saw her death. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I am terribly afraid of him. He's all I have left. 11 days later. Lately, I keep hearing something crawling along the hallways in the middle of the night. I gathered my courage and tried to find the source of this sound, but I couldn't find anything. Am I just hearing things? If so, I'm tired of it. And that thing with Heather? I need a long break. I was offered a few new positions in the Imperial City, but I'll turn them all down. I hired a new butler today, a wood elf. I think his name was Bal. Julius is unusually fond of him. I hope he'll be able to take good care of my son. The next month. The other butler, Clifford drowned in the courtyard pond. The cause of his death was likely an illness of his heart. The hero told me some complicated name of his illness, but it tells me nothing. Clifford served the Bernal family since I was a child. It saddened me to the bottom of my heart to see him gone, and still the tears won't come, just as they didn't when my wife died. I wonder if I'm a heartless man. Julius was watching that pond in the courtyard. I wonder if he's grieving for Clifford's death. I can read any emotion from his empty eyes. The next month. The sound of something crawling down the hallway is getting louder. This shouldn't be happening. Is something wrong with my mind? 10 days later, the Khajiit gardener, Mazak, died. He fell from the tree and slit his throat with his own gardening shears. The accident happened right in front of me, right after I greeted him in the morning. This is completely insane. I am not out of my mind. There is something in the mansion. A source of that crawling sound. Something horrible is crawling around the house. 12 days later, I'm having nightmares every night. In a room full of rust and blood, I see Julius, his eyes blazing like fire. Julia stands beside him, takes my hand and places a single red stone in it. The stone burns in my hand, turning my hand into ash. I scream in pain, but Julia only laughs soundlessly, and Julius only looks at me. The nightmare always ends there, but it's getting clearer and clearer every day. It's just a stupid dream. Yet it frightens me. What am I supposed to do? After that, the monsters come. Looking at them drains your stamina and causes the paranoia effect for amnesia to kick in. Don't even try to fight against them. Some of them can one-shot you. If you have any invisibility potions with you, start using them. The monsters themselves are representations of the people that die in those accidents. So to continue, we must go to the cellar and take the courtyard key from there, which is guarded by Samuel, who, if you can recall, had his entire body eaten by skivers. And I have to give another disclaimer here. I am playing this game on a decade-old character that has been fairly maxed out to infinity and beyond. So as we get to those endgame fights, it will seem easy when I'm playing it, but in reality it's not. The mode is known for being very difficult. In this case, for example, I got bored of waiting for this guy to leave, so I decided to beat the shit out of him. Under the courtyard leg is where you can find the third totem with the Curse of Froth. Navigating through this one, and it's just a big room full of prison bars, and in the middle there's a boss fight. After this we can enter the north ring of the mansion, and after some more exploring there we find the key to Bartholo's room. Now entering the room causes the monsters from the previous wing to start roaming this wing as well, so be careful and keep crouching. Bartholo is very much dead at this point, but next to him lies the Totem of Chains. There's nothing too remarkable about this one. Oh yeah, except this. On another, less comedic note, Bartholo is actually the final boss of this totem, meaning that he was either corrupted and forced to join whoever was putting the curses around the mansion, or he himself was sacrificed. If you ask me, I am more inclined to believe the second theory, as his body is literally found right next to the totem, and also on his dead body you can find an amulet of Stendar. Finally, a Vigilant that didn't press Alt F4 when shit hit the fan. Now there's only one totem left, the Totem of Jealousy. And to find this one, we need to go through Julia's room. At this point, you might be wondering why two spouses need different rooms if they are, you know, spouses. Well, the part of Marcus's journal found in Julia's room answers this question quite definitively. It can't be a coincidence that I met her in Markarth, the City of Stone. I broke the pledge of Mara that I have with Julia, but it's not my fault that her Debellian send misled me so. The City of Stone is full of vices, and it will swallow my minor sin with no one the wiser. The next month, I spent tonight by her side again. The guilt I felt for Julia almost crushed me at first, but the warmth of her skin made me forget it all. My wife isn't here. No nagging Julia here. Only her, my Debellian goddess. Later that month, I received a letter from the Imperial City. Nothing binds me to the City of Stone, but even the thought of leaving her is making me feel like my heart is tearing apart. I bought a Duemus Spider automaton as a souvenir for Julius. I am sure he'll be pleased. The next month. The City of Stone is the same as ever. Ill-mannered guards, persistent beggars, and everyone's breath smells so foul that one has to wonder whether they eat corpses for meals. But not her. She's my white lily of the Bella, my last Aetherius. Tonight, she will be mine. I brought enough gold to silence that Khajiit slaver. Provided that negotiations go well, I am sure I can free her from these rotten people. Negotiations went well. Spending 10,000 gold was painful, but it was a small price to pay to make her mine. Now the question remains. How do I explain this expense to Julia? The next month, she's pregnant. She was so happy when she told me. I was furious. I should be ashamed of my lack of composure. Did I do the right thing when I threw her out of the mansion as scantily clad as she was? Should I have paid for her silence? No. Should I have paid the guards instead? Or one of those beggars to silence her? No, it's useless. I would be the first suspect if it came to bloodshed. What else should I have done? Think, Marcus. Think. 3 days later. Damn that whore. She went crying to the Jarl. The Jarl decided that I have to pay for her living expenses, along with donating 100,000 gold to Markath. There was no other way for me to get rid of her. I agreed and paid the full amount, naturally, but the memory of the grin on the Jarl's face still enrages me. I wanted to hit him, but the guards surrounding him made me decide otherwise. You're a powerful man, Marcus. You should be proud of yourself. But still, I have to think of an excuse to tell Julia. I'm leaving this rotten city tomorrow, and I have no intention of ever coming back. And the reward for best father, husband and lover of the year 199 of the 4th era goes to... Marcus! What a man, what a guy. Under Julia's bed, we can find a journal that reveals her reaction about her husband's infidelity. And, oof. Oh my god. Guys? I think she took it pretty well. Behind Julius's bedroom there is a trapdoor which reveals a hidden chamber. And I know I'm supposed to take this seriously, but the kid tip-posing everywhere makes it really hard for me to take it seriously. Inside the chamber lies the final and strongest totem, the totem of jealousy. Next to the totem there is a small note from Julia to Marcus, which essentially says, "Hi, I'm leaving and I'm taking the kids, Mark." Touching the totem takes us to the final boss. I think this is supposed to be a representation of Julia's jealousy, but it looks straight out of Lost in Vivo. Defeating her allows us to dispel the curse and end Molag Bal's influence over Julia, as she seems to have been sacrificed for this totem to be made. But when we get out of the totem, we are immediately greeted by Bal, who immediately attacks us and gets killed. Well, kinda. We'll talk about that later. Going back to the main hall, and we see Julius dead on the floor. Examining his body, and it seems that he was the one who orchestrated all of this, with the help of Bal, the butler who he was so friendly with, who was also definitely legit. Julius was so overcome with rage and disappointment at his father's actions that he called upon a Daedric prince and he actually responded. Dispelling the dagger next to the child sends him free and stops the curse. But remember, those who give themselves to Molag Bal live beyond death as his servants, and as soon as you free Julius, you have to defeat Julius. After you defeat the child, you get trapped inside the mansion, and again here you have two different paths to choose from. However, this time, both choices lead to the same outcome. See, after you defeat the boy, Molag Bal once again appears before you, and his monologue says it all, so I'm just gonna let it play.
Fragile. How very fragile mortals are.
Why do you play with people like this? Are we just puppets to you?
Because you disgust me. It infuriates me when I see the Aetherius inside you. I despise all of creation, all of Mundus. And I despise you insignificant mortals most of all. So brilliant in your goodness, your innocence. I will devour you, and all the Aetherius. I will never stop until everything is mine.
Why are you here, Molag Bal? What do you want?
I am here to save you. Not much longer now, and you will be incinerated by the flames of Julius's hatred. This child's hatred is strong. Its flames will not go out until they burn you to ashes. Even LeMay's hatred was nothing like this. This is why Molag Bal is offering you a helping hand.
Here you can either martyr yourself for Stendarr, or you can submit to Molag Bal. I know it seems like a choice, but both choices establish the exact same thing, and I'm also like 100% sure that the martyr option is there for roleplay purposes only, so before we go with the canon option, or at least the more canon option, I'm gonna pick that one first.
And yet you pray to the divines? Stendarr will not lift a finger to save your pathetic skin. It is his wish that you burn and die here. The Aedra are weak. Nothing but illusion. They cannot feed the starving. They cannot warm the freezing. But I, Molag Bal, am different. I offer you salvation. I can show you a miracle. I will continue to extend my hand to you until your flesh and bones are turned to cinders. I will be here.
When you pick that option and you martyr yourself for Stendar, you respawn back at Vigilant HQ and you are given a new character. That character will then be instructed by Gwyneth to go and search for the Keeper of the Hall, aka your previous character. So your new character, who by the way is also a Dragonborn apparently, goes to the mansion to find your old character's burned body, and when you interact with that body, things get really weird. Immediately the room's atmosphere completely changes. This particular art style will never again be seen throughout the entirety of this mod, as it is the harbinger of a completely new entity which we have never seen before and will never see again. You see, creatures called Dregs of Sithis and a being known as the Black Hand appear before the player and begin to spout what to us seems like useless nonsense. Dregs are defined as the small solid pieces found at the bottom of several beverages, and we see that Julius has turned into one of these creatures. But more importantly, right next to Julius, there is a dead Moloch ball in his beast form. Also, when you interact with the other Dregs, they begin vomiting foreshadowing information, which makes no sense right now. So let's hear it.
To sleep, to dream of Tamriel, unsullied by Manuel. Old forest, kind's garden, release the twisted love, lie down on the funeral path, and read the end of the dream. In the dark valley, under the gentle rain of regret, where the crushed ships go.
There are several ways to interpret this scene, and none of them are canon to the story, so I'm gonna take the rare chance and go off on a frolic of my own and suggest that this scene symbolizes the previous character's death and his victory over Moloch Bal. I'm not sure why Sithis is here. My only real guess is that the abrupt death of the Dragonborn created chaos of such scale that a form of Sithis' own existence manifested itself. But again, that's a wild theory. For those of you that aren't very well initiated in the Elder Scrolls lore, Sithis is less of a god in the same way that Moloch Bor or Stendar are, and he's more akin to, say, Nyarlathotep from the Lovecraftian mythos. He is the essence of chaos itself, and it is believed that he is also Parome, which is one of the two primordial entities that created the Elder Scrolls universe. So yeah, a lot of VIPs in this mansion today, huh? So now, no matter what, the novice will have to drink Moloch Bol's blood in order to escape from this room. But I'm not gonna do that. Instead, I'm just gonna load up my normal character and have the portal open to me that way. By the way, I really like the dialogue ripped straight out of Dante's Inferno as Moloch Bol opens the door to his realm.
Your wish is granted. What is there is a place of despair, eternal suffering and forsaken people. Only acceptance can ease the pain. It is better to abandon all hope.
And thus begins the fourth, final and biggest chapter of Vigilant, Oblivion. So I want to do a quick sum up of all the small unsolved mysteries we've gathered thus far. So I think it is obvious at this point that Moloch Bol doesn't want to kill us. In fact, he's practically begging us to go to his realm at this point. Whatever it is he wants us to do, it requires us to be in his realm. But it doesn't seem like it also requires for us to be his servants, as he never told us to join him like he did with Jacob or the others. There are also a lot of recurring characters that we know nothing about, like Bal and the Bard who stopped LeMay all the way back in Act 2. Oh, and there is still the mystery of the stones found in people's bodies back in Act 1. In fact, Marcus mentioned something about one of those stones back in his journal, as well as everything the Dregs of Sithis spoke about. That's basically a huge enigma to us. But fear not, all these mysteries will be explained during the fourth and final act of Vigilant. No matter how you ended up there, Act 4 will always begin when you first enter Moloch Bol's Realm of Oblivion. This is definitely the act that the mod is actually known for, and it's easy to see why. Much like Act 3, the gameplay is completely different, this time becoming open world exploration gameplay in a vast DLC-sized area with the main objective that can be put to the side until the player wants to actually engage with it. Unfortunately, I can't cover the entire area. Instead, I'm gonna cover some of the big events that happen while we're exploring this wasteland, some small events that are important or just nice for world building purposes, and of course the journey the Dragon mod makes to actually end this act. Also, this is where the parallels with Dark Souls become more obvious. For example, a lot of the bosses and enemies are just using Dark Souls textures. This is probably because Vince didn't have the time to make 50 different textures for different bosses. and I can't say I blame him for that either. There are also a lot of systems like summonings and weapons that look a lot like Dark Souls, and to me that's just fine. Oh, and finally, we need to talk about the karma system. See, in Vigilant there are different endings, and this mod does an incredibly good job in integrating these endings with good gameplay. So every time you kill a big body or fix someone's broken memory, we'll get to that later, you get karma. Doing the opposite of these actions loses you karma, and the amount of karma you have will determine the endings available to you. So after we enter Cold Harbor, we are immediately greeted by an Inquisitor named Pepe. Yes, I know he's Pepe. And yes, I know, this made me laugh too. Also, another side note, if you're someone who's played this mod in the past, then you might remember Pepe's appearance being something completely different than this. I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but this mod keeps getting updated sometimes, and some of the updates made were done so to better improve the narrative of this location. For example, Pepe's old appearance made no sense to the lore of this area, so this new outfit makes more sense. Now, Pepe in this mod works as our version of Virgil from Dante's Inferno, as much like Virgil, he guides us through this place and dumps a bunch of exposition when necessary. But unlike Virgil, he's a very unreliable narrator, and so not all he says might be the truth or the whole truth, as he himself has an agenda. Where is Molag Bal?
Probably at the top of the tower, in the center of the Imperial City. Why do you want to know? You'd better not ask him for a favor, believe me. You'll just end up like the ones outside. Praying to the divines is useless too. The Elysian Order burned all their priests and servants.
I'm going to the tower, and I'm going to crush Molag Bal.
Well, that's madness. No mortal can do this. He's a playwright of this tragedy, and we're all just his puppets.
What is this place? Some kind of priory?
This is the Mathmalatu Priory. Back in its glory days, it was the monastery of the Elysian Order. Countless pilgrims used to come here to pray to the one true god in St. Elysia. But that was a few thousand years ago.
Tell me about the Elysian Order.
They were the ones blessed by the true god in St. Elysia, and they still ended up in this wasteland. The Imgur prophet Maruk created the order. Sometimes I wonder why they believed that monkey's foolish tales.
Okay, so this guy just dumped a bunch of information on us in a very short amount of time, but the only thing worth keeping in mind right now is that the Elysian Order, according to Elder Scrolls lore, was a religious organization that gained control of the Elysian Empire, which was basically an order version of Tamriel's current empire. In the year 361 of the First Era, the order was apparently founded by a monkey-like human who claimed to have spoken to Saint Elysia. The actual doctrines of the order were very strict and included, amongst other things, the monotheistic worship of a supreme spirit, which is believed to have been Akatosh, the complete exclusion of all the other divines and Daedra, and the persecution of all non-human races, such as elves, Khajiit, and Minotaurs. In fact, Minotaurs were so heavily persecuted because Elysia herself had a son with a Minotaur, something the Order felt was impossible and blasphemous, that they eventually turned feral, hence why they are portrayed that way in Oblivion. The reign of the Elysian Order also coincided with a bunch of other things like plagues, famines, and natural disasters. This was basically the Elder Scrolls version of the Dark Ages. I know there's like a bunch of other terms Pepe just showered us with, but they're all explained quite well later on, so we'll get there when we get there. Exiting the Priory, and the first thing that comes to mind for anyone who's played the Elder Scrolls Online is that this place looks nothing like Cold Harbor, as Cold Harbor is often described as a dark and gloomy place, but I can assure you, this is all intentional. A little bit more down the road, and there is actually a small settlement for people who escaped the sarcophagus before the player. Speaking to the guard of the gate of this settlement, and he has a lot of interesting things to say actually.
Newcomer, you're so full of life.
Did you see any other Vigilant around here?
Vigilance? Weaklings like you? One such tried his luck with the flying worm a while ago. Some screaming was heard, and then nothing. If you don't want to meet the same end, you should learn your place in this world.
Do you know how to enter the fort?
Take the key from the captain. He's always up in one of the watchtowers.
Tell me about the flying worm.
A flying Daedrith. How can he even fly with such an unshapely body?
So apparently another Vigilant has come down this way after they succumbed to Molag Bal's temptations. I wonder who that might be. So in order to get past the gate, we need to kill the leader of the Daedra who lives in the local tower. And wouldn't you know it, but we actually know who this guy is.
Welcome, Vigilant of Stendar. Once again, my name is Vernakis. I am the Bane of Kine!
As you can see, killing him and opening the gate is quite simple. Killing the worm, who is basically a dragon that doesn't land until he's already low on HP, however, was not simple, because I'm a melee character. I mentioned already how this mod can be quite challenging combat-wise at times, but it can also be challenging criteria-wise. Bosses that need to be killed in a specific way, level requirements, casting spell requirements, you name it, and Cold Harbor needs it. After killing the beast, you find Altano's skull in its inventory. As it turns out, he was the Vigilant that left the village before you. After that, Pepe shows up, and this time, his exposition dump is even better.
Thank you for killing the worm. I can finally enjoy my walks again.
Why are you here?
I told you, I'm on a walk. An old man should be allowed this much.
How do I get to the Imperial City?
The main gate is to the north, but it's been sealed since the invasion of the Army of Order. There is a way, though. To the northeast of the island, there's a large sewer leading to the prison tower in the city. You may want to try crawling through it. If you're lucky, it will lead you to the Imperial City. If you're lucky.
What's the Army of Order?
An infinite army, led by Jigalag. It invaded a few decades ago and began conquering the entire continent. Almost the entire empire was absorbed and destroyed by Jigalag. After the defeat in the Battle of Wei, only this island with the Imperial City remained. Countless souls have been sacrificed to maintain the barrier. But even the souls have limits, and Molag Bal's power is declining. The barrier will not last much longer. Then, Grey March will overrun this wasteland and crush us all.
Battle of Wei. What happened there?
Jigalag manifested there at the height of the battle. A brilliant silver cocoon appeared and evaporated everyone around it, regardless whether they were a friend or a foe. Its light was dazzling. It was so beautiful, as if we suddenly stepped into Aetherius. Even I shed tears at that sight. Anyway, most of our higher nobility perished in that light. Only incompetents like Vernacus and Nukuata remained. All this reminds me of the last days of the Elysian Empire. There was no winner. Only ruins remained.
Tell me what you know about this area.
This is the territory of Lord Varla. If we don't want to become food for his dogs, avoid the fortress to the east and go north.
Varla? Anything I should know about him?
He's a knight who made a name for himself with the cleansing of Malada. But his mind is twisted, broken. He's now hunting humans with his dogs. After he ended up here, he swore allegiance to Molag Bal. He was allowed to keep his human form, and he even got his own territory. Be careful around him.
Tell me more about Jigalag.
He's the Daedric Prince of Order. Because of his immense power, the other Daedra imprisoned him in his own realm, and cursed him with madness. But apparently, some fool freed him, and now he's marching around this wasteland like a rabid beast.
Now, everyone who is familiar with the events of Oblivion and its DLC Shivering Isles are probably crying tears of joy right now. But for the rest of you, uninitiated, I need to explain that the main character of Oblivion is the one who set Jigalag free and then became the new Sheogorath. This is what Pepe was talking about when he said that the other Daedric princes combined their power and drove Jigalag into madness, thus turning him into Sheogorath. But now he's free, and it seems like the Daedric Prince of Order has a bit of an axe to grind against Molag Bal, who is the Daedric Prince of Domination. Makes sense. And I think this is what makes this more even greater. You see, Bethesda has been quiet throughout the entirety of Skyrim about what happened to Jigalag. And perhaps that's for the best. When you have characters this powerful, it becomes hard to write for them in the context of a greater plot, as they tend to become the greater plot. But mods like Vigilant have the luxury of implementing these characters based on the current information about them. From here, the road is just a bunch of small dungeons for some time. These dungeons are all very small, and they're all quite similar. A lot of enemies throughout, a big fuck-off boss at the end, and some form of loot, often in the form of weapons and armor. And most importantly, karma. The next really notable event that happens in this journey is when the Dragonborn goes to Varla's castle, because you see Pepe told us not to go there, so naturally we go there anyway. This part is skippable, but it provides some really good world building, so I thought I'd just mention it anyway. However, This place has what many of us in the industry might refer to as a lore hazard. Allow me to explain. You see, the crux of Varla's story is that he served as an alien guard under Emperor Belharzar, and that name infuriates me. For one, there is only one documented Emperor Belharzar in the entire Elder Scrolls universe, and that guy lived 1 century before this guy. Also, that emperor was described as a half-minotaur. This guy isn't a half-minotaur. At this point, I am open to accept this as either unfortunate naming or someone being a dummy dum-dum. Ascending the tower to kill Varla, and this is where the chicanery begins. You see, after you kill someone in Cold Harbor, you get to relive the moments in their life which ended them in Cold Harbor. Much like how it happened with Giovanni all the way back in Act 1. A little too similar if you ask me. However, in Cold Harbor, not only are you able to view the flashbacks, but you are able to act in different ways than those of the people whose dream you're in. This means that you can correct some people's actions and give them peace in death, thus releasing them from the grip of Molag Bal. So for example, Varla here now has the option to either kill people senselessly in the name of his emperor, which includes children, something which led him to end up becoming an ally with Molag Bal, or he can take the child and go somewhere far away from the empire. However, and it is important to keep in mind that these are all flashbacks. The people who partook in those flashbacks all took the worst possible option, hence why they ended up in Cold Harbor. The flashbacks essentially work as post-mortem redemption, and more importantly to the story, they deprive Molag Bal of followers and influence. So killing Varla and leaving his castle, and there's no need to rush around, do some side activities, admire the leeches, admire the lake, admire the environment, maybe do some dungeons. In one of the sewers I even found a Warcraft reference.
My child.
The next really noteworthy event that happens in my opinion is the Dragonborn's encounter with one of the most infamous characters in the entire Elder Scrolls lore, Pelennor Whitestrake. So this fight is incredible. The music is a killer, the environment is a killer, Pelennor Whitestrake is a killer. On the way to the fight you can see like 2,000 piles of corpses. Pelennor himself is physically weak and beyond repair, which is probably the only reason why we have a chance of actually beating him. And with all that, as well as the fact that his sword is broken, he's still an extremely difficult boss. Now, when you kill Pelennor, you don't just go through a normal flashback. No, that would be too simple. Instead, you are given the opportunity to merge your consciousness with his own. What ensues if you choose this option is a perfect recreation of the legend behind Pellennor's death, as he marched alone on a fit of rage on the White Gold Tower and murdered every single guard by himself and even killed the Iliad Emperor.
You really enjoy killing. You are like a child tearing legs off of insects. The mythic era will not be over. Not until the tainted blood of Ada still remains in the world. Like yours and mine. Fine. We will talk after I cleave your head from your shoulders. Perhaps you will listen then.
Now, after this fight, everyone's favorite recurring character shows up.
Wonderful, wonderful, my Lord Pelennor. This was splendid. Songs of your heroic acts will be sung in 1,000 years yet to come. Oh, of course. I would like to show you something interesting in Umaril's gallery. Please, follow me.
From here, Bal takes us to a room full of slaves and then says this.
This is it. She is Umaril's slave. One that is used only once, if you understand. Tomorrow she would likely be cut down and become a part of the artwork you've seen before. But Umaril is dead now, so there's no worry about that anymore. Splendid. You are her lifesaver. She carries Umaril's seed. It is up to you to decide what to do with her. It's all the same to me what you do with her. However, if she lives, she will pose a threat. The blood of Ada is powerful, but it also breaks the minds of those who carry it within themselves. as you yourself should know very well. Very well. I see you need some time to decide. Don't rush your decision.
If you kill her, which is what Pelennor actually did, and then return to the main chamber, this is what happens.
While he stood above him, insulting his ancestry and anyone else that took shit from old Elderfway, which angered the other Elvish kings and drove them to a madness of their own, and they fell on him, cutting him into eighths. This will be a good song.
I am a storm, the rage itself. This is how I can fight, battle after battle, lay village after village in ash and ruins, and murder women and children alike. It was always raining after the battle. Gentle rain washed away the blood and healed my pain. It swept the dirty blood away and drove it to the end of the sea. When did the rain stop falling? Since when does it take more blood to wash away the bloodshed before?
And this is how Pelennor ended up in Cold Harbor. If, however, you choose to spare her life and let her live, what happens next is what I believe to be the second best cutscene in this entire mod.
Ah, so you didn't kill her. This is unusual for you. But was it a right thing to do? Her child will surely cause disasters, larger even than you. As you wish. Then, farewell. I was a storm, the rage itself. This is how I could fight battle after battle, lay village after village in ash and ruins, and murder women and children alike. It was always raining after the battle. Gentle rain washed away the blood and healed my pain. It swept the dirty blood away and drove it to the end of the sea. So I fought. So I wanted to think. Kain was always crying after battle, but not for me. No. She was crying for the innocents lying there. The blood of the weak will no longer be shed. Even Kain will not need to cry again. My fight is over. I ran on and on. When I finally came to my senses, the rain of remorse had ceased, and the sun had long since begun to sink in the distance. I turned around, and at the end of my long shadow saw what I was looking for. A golden wheat field, gentle breeze stroking it, a woman hitting the pillow, feathers bursting out of it turning to snow, and a child playing with the wolf. This is the wind of Kain. I finally found it. Finally.
If that ain't good character development, well, I just don't know what is. After this encounter, the road to the slums Pepe mentioned is fairly short. There we meet Pepe again, just in time for his beautiful words to bless our ears.
You're finally here. What kept you so long? There's nothing worth stopping for in this wasteland. You're a right lazy one. Even an old man like myself managed to overtake you.
Where does this sewer lead?
To the prison tower. It's a place where people who fought against Elysians were imprisoned. Beware of the leech monsters along the way. They are rampant here, and far worse than the people in the slums.
Leech monsters now. Tell me more about them.
You must have seen people infested with the leeches on your way here. Whatever remains of them ends up here. Some call them Mary's children. The Elysians burned her on the pyre for, supposedly, being a witch. Some say she consorted with the Morlag Ball and gave birth to those monsters.
You mentioned Mary. What can you tell me about her?
The masters called her Mara. Mara. The name of one of Anuiel's damned usurpers.
You know this place better than I do. Tell me about the docks.
Originally, it was used to transport criminals and other goods. Workers and beggars settled around, and gradually built a large city. Elysians burned this town many times out of fear of the plague, but it always started rebuilding the very next day. The Elysian Order finally gave up, and even granted the city some autonomy. Ironically, the Thrashing Plague broke out here in the following year.
What happened then?
The people here had no chance escaping the plague. Mountains of corpses clogged the sewer, and Lake Rumar was filled with blood and decayed flesh. Then, they started burning corpses every day. I remember it like yesterday.
So past the docks and just in time for another Easter egg. Okay, this is the last, I promise. On the other side of the docks you can find a place called Cadwell's house. Now Cadwell is a fairly popular character in the Elder Scrolls Online, a game which I might be familiar with. I don't know, he doesn't say anything actually important, it's just a fun Easter egg I thought I should mention.
Shazar returns from the frost of icy Atmora, announcing a new age. Shazar returns with a roar of Eastmere, bringing a storm to drench the jungle. Shazar returns to plunge a sword into the snake to reclaim the empty throne.
I'm noticing that there is way too many names that all mean the exact same thing, and way too many terminologies that will never be explained, and this situation will persist until the end of this mod. So for the sake of our sanities, I'll just like to explain a few things real quick. So basically, and you know things are about to get serious when I'm whipping out Windows Paint, basically, Shazar, Shor or Lorkhan are all terms that refer to the same deity that apparently tricked or convinced some gods, depending on whom you believe, to give a big chunk of their power to create Mundus, the realm in which Tamriel resides in. Okay, now, remember when I said that Sithis was one of the primordial entities that created the Elder Scrolls universe? Well, the name of the other primordial entity was Anu, which eventually became Anuiel, just like how Parme became Sithis. Then, after that happened, Anuiel created Akatosh, basically the dragon god of time, and the concept of time itself. And Sithis created Lorkhan. Now somehow, Lorkhan convinced Akatosh, who is also known as Ariel, to create the realm of Mundus, which weakened him and his followers, some of whom eventually became the 8 Divines. Some sources say he did this so he can trick Akatosh, others say that he simply didn't know the power required to complete the task, so that one is up for interpretation. Either way, when Akatosh sees the loss of his power, he's not pleased about it, and so he took Lorkhan's heart and shoved it under a mountain. Something which will definitely not come up in the future, nor will it make an entire race of people disappear. Okay, now that we got some definitions straight, let's get back to the story. This is a very brief summary, by the way. If you want to learn more about this, the internet is your friend. Fudgemabbit is also your friend. Okay, now, where were we? Oh yeah, the docks. Well, basically, after that we just have to navigate through the sewers and the prison above the sewers so we can finally reach the Imperial City. There are a lot of bosses throughout the Imperial City, however only like 2 of them are actually relevant to the plot. The 2 bosses are Pope Mangus and Drozel the Mad King. Starting with Drozel, and the thing that strikes out particularly when you encounter him is his backstory. You see, unlike all the others who ended up in Cold Harbor because of their misfortunes or their stupidity, he ended up here because he was stalked relentlessly by a bard until he was driven to madness because nothing he could ever do could ever make the bard go away.
Again and again, how many times must I kill you? How many times must I cover your hometown with red mist? I have enough. Are there any more coffins needed? I have already filled thousands of them.
Also, this Khajiit isn't really a boss, he's just an unfortunate guy. Going through the memories of his wife shows us how she failed to control her husband and prevent him from succumbing to madness and eventually joining Moloch Bal. It is only when his wife dismisses the bard that her husband is able to move forward. So this is quite odd. This is the first time we hear from this bard since like Act 2. And what's more is that he seems to be working for Moloch Bal. Yet in Act 2, his dagger was plunged into LeMay's chest, who is a subject of Moloch Bal. Killing Drozel actually takes him out of his misery and gives us the key to the central district, which we must go to anyway. Pope Mangus, on the other hand, seems to be the embodiment of greed. He's the head of the Elysian Order, and his chamber is a room full of gold. There is also a golden sculpture behind him, and trust me when I tell you that this is the most important piece of information we have received about this mod's overarching story so far. It depicts a horde of people in suffering and distress as one of them ascends above them, and beneath him there is some form of sphere or stone, or as both words are translated in the language of the Eliads, a ball. Inside this ball, there are 99 human hearts, 99 skulls, 99 pieces of human flesh, the key to the Inquisition's court district, and both the staff and sword of Maruk, the prophet who founded the Elysian Order. Based on this sculpture, it seems like the goal of the Elysian Order is to sacrifice something or someone to this ball so they can ascend in some form. Now, these are the two necessary bosses needed to continue the main quest, but I feel like if I were to continue things from here without further analyzing some of the places inside the Imperial City, you're all just gonna end up confused. So here are some definitely not relevant to the plot tourist attractions inside the Imperial City. Attraction number 1. The statue of Molag Bal in the Imperial City. Hey, remember that poor family we killed all the way back in Act 1 for no reason whatsoever? Other than a guy told me to? Yeah, they are all here. And they are very much unhappy about this whole ordeal. So unhappy in fact, that they're dead. Attraction number 2. The Elysian Entrance Plaza. Remember when Pepe told us about an infinite army that wanted to destroy this realm? Well, they all reside right behind these walls.
I don't know what this is, but it's kind of hot.
Right next to the border is Bishop Arasil, who has this to say. What is this strange wall?
Remains of the soldiers of Order who touched the barrier. It dissolved the weaker ones and bound the stronger. It's a curse of Molag Bal. However, even this can merely slow down Grey March. It won't be able to protect this area much longer.
Do you know anything about Pepe?
He was a priest of the Eight Divines. He was a kind-hearted man, at least until he returned from the Colovian jungle. Perhaps the real Pepe died in that jungle long ago. At least I wish it were so.
The man stuck in the wall. Do you have any idea who he is?
Laza. Supposedly he was a shepherd from the north, but he gave up his humanity and reason to hunt down Molag Bal. That man's determination is frightening. Trying to kill a god.
Remember this Laza character? He is special, so it seems that basically everyone knows that Molag Bal is on borrowed time. I wonder if Molag Bal is thinking of like a scheme to get him out of this situation.
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
Third and final tourist attraction, Saint Dorso's Charner, guarded by a man wielding 2 swords named Arundel. Oh boy, have I never seen this man before.
"77. Dragonborn, bad man, a god of endless freedom. His trace, Shazar." "Dulce, do you see this stone? 77 secret rituals will soon be finished, and then the lost stone of Aalesh will be restored. This is why I called you, beloved Dulce. Aalesh commanded it, for this secret is to be completed with your blood and that of the child in your belly. There is neither madness nor reason here. The word of Aalesh is the truth. It is my mission to wash this stone with blood and place it in the tower. The stone showed it to me. It showed me a hero who shall shatter the Aldemiri, plunge the sword into the snake and conquer the continent. I don't know whether this is a vision of future or past, but if it brings us even closer to that day, then I am willing to sacrifice you and my child for it."
And here it is, the stone that was given to Maruk by Elysia. Now this begs the obvious question, why did Saint Elysia, who was always described as a benevolent leader, do this? Why would she give a monkey man a stone that requires the blood of innocence in order for it to be fueled? And what can it ascend? And to what end? All these questions have answers, and all the answers to these questions lie forward.
What happened here? Oh, I understand. I will do this. I promise by Mara.
Okay, so I know I said we're going to the inner district, and we will, but before we get there, we must first take a small detour to Malada. Going through the Inquisition district, which is on the way to Malada, we see Pepe again.
This place is full of memories. I can see the images of days passed in my mind. But everything is lost now. Where did I go wrong? When I burned Mary, or killed that Salode, or when I met Maruk in the jungles of Kolovia. Everything is gone now, and I don't know anymore.
What is that floating temple?
This is Malada, the high fane of the Iliad. Fanatics brought it here, supposedly so they could dance here, to erase the 8 divines from Mundus.
Which fanatics are you talking about? I have met quite a few so far.
They like to be called Marukati Selectives. They hate all else. Everything connected to Unreal, really. You may be a fool, but they are much greater fools. They hate everything in existence, just like Molag Bal.
Do you have any idea how I could get to Malada?
There is a monastery of Maruk's followers to the south. There should be a portal underground. You can't use it to escape this wasteland, but it will bring you to Malada. However, Maruk's followers have gone mad a long time ago. They won't let you use the portal so easily.
And so with that, we go to Malada to find a way to open the gate and reach the White Gold Tower, and therefore Molag Bal. The journey to Malada is admittedly pretty dull. It's basically the same lunatics but in a different neighborhood. The final boss guarding the portal Pepe was talking about was kinda difficult, but anyone who made it this far can probably kill him with the right shot, and thus both the Dragonborn and Pepe find themselves in Maruk's preservation chamber? I think so.
Maruk the Imga. It's been a long time. He hasn't changed since I met him in the Colovian jungle. His face still looks just as stupid as then.
Do you know anything about this Imka? Who is he?
The Prophet Maruk. He had visions of Saint Alicia. He brought the stone into the Imperial City and laid foundations for the Alician Order.
What can you tell me about the stone now?
Just a stone, nothing else. But everyone kneeled before it, before its temptation. I still remember this as if it happened yesterday. But you held it in your hands too, and you swallowed it. Even once is more than enough.
So the Elysian Order used to have the stone?
It was lost during the War of Righteousness. Even the Daedra left us high and dry. When the Elysian Empire lost the stone, it crumbled soon after. For we were not shepherds of our people. We were their enslavers.
What is the stone now?
Don't get so excited. It's still at the top of the tower in the center of the Imperial City. It won't run away now, not in these circumstances.
Looks like you and Maruk are old friends.
At that time, I still served the 8 divines. I heard an Iliad bard sing a strange song at the crossroads, about the Imga dancing with the apparition of Saint Alicia. When I asked him about it, he told me he had seen it himself in the jungles of Kolovia. I went to see it with my own eyes. Normally, I'd laugh at such a story, but I felt as if it was my duty to go and see. Perhaps I felt like that because there was something strangely mysterious about that bard. Anyway, I went to Kolovia.
And you found him there?
And I found it. I saw a dirty monkey, smeared with blood, dancing with the illusion of Saint Alicia under the full moon. Their dance lasted until dawn. When the monkey noticed the morning sun, it stopped dancing, and the illusion of Saint Alicia faded like mist. The monkey saw me standing there in shock, raised a brilliant stone and said, "Take this stone to the tower."
What happened to it?
You've seen what happened. It has all become as you see it now. Let's stop talking now.
What do you suggest I do with this Imko?
Give him peace. I want it all to end already. Yes, it seems the army of order broke through the barrier. At last, Grey March will begin. You truly did well.
What do you mean?
It will all end now. A millennia of pointless waiting will end now. I believed at first that someday Caesar will come and save us from the suffering. But I waited for thousands of years, and he didn't come. I opened thousands of sarcophagi, believing in the prophecy, but only poor imitations of the real thing crawled out of them. Where is Caesar? What is he doing? Oh, I know now. He won't come. I should have known from the very beginning. I'm sorry, but I saw no other way. Let me show you the last way out and return. Now that Marek is dead, the central barrier should be weakened too. There is a mansion to the north of the Imperial City. The mad Keenest and Saul Drozel resides there. Kill him, and take his heart and key. The key opens the gate to the center of the city, and the heart you will need to get into the tower. Hurry, Greymarch will be here soon, and it has the same goal as you. This is the end of my long walk. I will wait here for the end this old man deserves.
And immediately after this event happens, the Greymarch appears, and Laza attacks the Dragonborn. After defeating him, we rush to the White Gold Tower as pure white crystals appear everywhere throughout Cold Harbor and begin manifesting themselves as Jiggalak's endless army. Inside the tower we can find Pepe Spectre, and this is what he has to say this time.
Surely, it will all be over soon. A penance of thousands of years will be over today. All the captured souls will be released.
Does the name Laza mean anything to you?
Laza. I've heard it somewhere. Who was it?
Wait, are you supposed to be dead?
The madness cannot be shaken off so easily. You, who touched the stone, should understand this. That stone is the key to the gates of the soul. It's the bell of awakening that rouses the oblivion inside.
A quick ascension of the tower, and we can actually meet him again. But this time, more than anything, Pepe just appears remorseful.
Oh, Alicia, I am sorry.
What's up ahead?
The body of Our Lady Alicia. Raising the dead is more like Baal's speciality. Even without souls, bodies of the powerful serve him as useful vessels. Even dead saints serve him well. Or perhaps should I say that they only serve him precisely because they are dead. I hope you share their fate. Do what you've been doing all along. Destroy it. You can't do anything else anyway.
Does the name Laza mean anything to you?
Laza. Oh, I remember. That's a name often used by nomads of the north. But as far as I know, they were all slain by vampires ages ago.
After defeating everyone, including the leader of Molag's army, we attempt to save what little remains from Saint Alicia's body.
Run away! Quickly! Before the wolf arrives!
But then, out of nowhere, Laza comes back for seconds. So we finish him off again and ascend the stairs so we can finally confront Molag Bal. But not before Pepe gives us one final message.
Is it not enough yet? Must you be the one to do this? Greymarch will end everything anyway. Won't you listen to the old man for once? I'll say it again. Stop. There's nothing good waiting for you here. Here, there's only decay. No mysteries, no miracles. Every effort ends in vain here.
So finally, after all we have done and all we have been through, we can just kill Molag Bal, take the stone, and leave.
Stop. Please.
Wait! Pause it right here. This scene is completely fake, and this is all just a trap. This is where we get to the endings, and these endings require a lot of explaining. So in case you haven't been able to tell yet, this whole scene is fake. Even this has been part of Molag Bal's plans. What happens from here on out depends on the amount of karma we have accumulated throughout this entire mod. The first ending occurs if you have 50 or below karma, in which case this happens.
You did it. Perhaps precisely because you had to overcome so many challenges. The gate of Aetherius has been opened, and now Aetherius is finally within my grasp. I no longer need this wasteland. I will gladly leave it to Jiggalak now, if he wants it so much. And now, to Aetherius, the plane everyone dreams of. On this day, Aetherius burns. Watch how the gods of Anuiel meet their end.
to sleep, to dream of Tamriel, unsullied by any real.
This is all thanks to you. Stendar is finally dead, and Aetherius is mine. I am most grateful to you. All of this is possible only because you opened the gate to Aetherius.
Yeah, this was all a farce. There was no red stone that can ascend people. The stone works basically as a bottomless soul gem that feeds people into Molag Bal. You see, Molag Bal could have never hoped to open the gate to Aetherius, but someone with the blood of, let's say, Akatosh just might. And so, by combining the stone that carries Molag Bal's existence on it, and the Dragon Mode's ability to access different realms of Mundus such as the Aetherius, or if you remember during the Skyrim main quest Sovngarde, Molag Bal was finally able to break free from his destroyed realm and conquer a new one. Yet this option occurs only if the Dragon Mode has below 50 karma, something which should never happen unless you go out of your way to make people's days miserable and keep them in Molag Bal's grasp. But what happens when the Dragon Mode has more than 50 karma? Well, that's where we get to all the other endings. Things here get very complicated, so I'm going to present them in an order that I believe explains them as best as possible. After we enter Aetherius with 50 or more karma, we see a statue of Molag Bal reaching out to the realm, but not being able to reach it because he was pierced by a spear just after entering the gate to Aetherius. And over in the distance we can actually see the man who threw the spear at Molag Bal, who is none other than Stendar himself. Now, before I get into the endings, I need to explain what happens when we actually interact with Molag Bal's statue, because upon doing so, we enter into a broken realm full of ruins and broken structures, but more importantly, this realm also has dead dragons in it. And not just any dead dragons, mind you, these are all character models of Alduin. Now, everyone here who is a lore nerd probably knows where this is going, and they're also probably having a seizure because of it, so I'm really sorry about that. But if you don't know what's going on here, when we interact with the statue, a dragon break occurs. Now, every time someone talks about dragon breaks, someone gets hurt, either by bashing their heads against the wall, or perhaps by suffering a mental breakdown.
I need to know! Someone explain it! It's confusing, I don't know!
Or even just spontaneously combusting. This is perhaps one of the most complicated events in the Elder Scrolls to actually explain, so I'm gonna try and break it down as best as I can, but if by the end of this you're still feeling confused, then that's completely normal. In fact, you're just like the rest of us. See, a dragon break in the Elder Scrolls universe refers to a point in time in which time breaks apart and branches out to all possible outcomes that can occur during the time of the dragon break. And when all the events are done, all these events come back together and the timeline continues as a straight line. Yet, and this is gonna come up in the ending, so I thought I should mention this here, the branching realities don't necessarily have to lead to the same place, and it is entirely possible to end up either back in time or ahead of other branching timelines. And to make you understand what all this clusterfuck means, let's look at the first ending. So in this realm, there are 3 different strange piles of sand, representing the 3 last people still firmly within Molag Bal's grasp. Pepe's flashback doesn't have any options or any uniquely relevant information. It more or less serves as a conclusion for the character. It shows us how fed up and disillusioned he is with the world around him, as he has become basically a puppet for Molag Bal without him even knowing about it.
This is what I'm concerned about. I held the stone too long. Now I'm just an empty shell without a soul. I tell you this as a warning. Learn from the monster standing before you, and stop grasping for the stone.
Maruk's flashback, however, shows him wandering around the desert with no prior knowledge of who he is, where he's going, or why he's there. All he knows at this point is that there is a vampire roaming the desert, and that if he doesn't find a way out, he will surely die.
What am I doing in this wasteland? My memory is hazy.
And it is in that state that he stumbles upon a dead bard's corpse and finds the red soul gem, which we now know is the fake Arabal.
A bard's corpse. Was this wasteland the cause of his death? Or was he killed by a vampire roaming this place? When I touched the stone, I felt a burning pain, as if my soul was being sucked out. I wonder, is this stone the true nature of the vampire in this wasteland? Even now, after swallowing the souls of thousands of people, the stone is still not filled. Captured souls are swirling inside it.
Marbach, can you hear me? Feel the stone. When the lost Adabal regains its splendor, this endless war will be over. Feel the stone. Restore the Adabal and place it in the tower. This is your mission.
Now, we know at this point that this really isn't Alicia, it's just Molag Bal puppeteering a dead body, and we also know that Maruk ultimately accepted the offer, but for the sake of releasing him and giving him some sort of redemption, we go the other way.
Useless flesh puppet. I thought it was good enough.
I remember again, vampire. You cannot fool me anymore.
Is that so? But nothing has changed. You will still die in this wasteland. There is only one way out. Submit to me. Fill the stone with souls.
Now here's the interesting part. If you have the Eye of Maruk with you, and you observe Molag Bal closely, you can actually observe that Molag Bal, or at least a part of him, was once mortal.
Ah, your eyes see further than most. So, what happened? Oh, it was a very long time ago. I do not remember anymore. But let me hear your decision. Will you submit to me? Or will you die?
I will die here. You will never get what you want out of me.
Death it is, then.
My third eye is already blind. My tongue is swollen and my throat is parched. I will not last much longer. My beloved Dulsa, I only regret not being able to see you again. I wish you a happy life.
Now, to access the final dream / flashback, we need to actually fight Molag Bal in this realm.
Every dream comes to an end. Even dreams that no longer need their dreamer cannot escape this fate. Well, let us finish this. Tell me who I am. Who you are.
Defeating Molag Bal and touching the Sun Pile, we are transported to a past version of the Tree of Life in Skyrim, and in front of us is LeMay before she became a vampire. Whoever the main character here is, he seems to be a bard singing a sad song for LeMay, and so LeMay requests he makes a happier ending for the song. After responding to her, LeMay leaves, and the character is then given the option between a creature known as the Spawn and a flute. If you choose the Spawn, this happens.
Once upon a time, when the Elder Gleam was still young, I slept in Kain's cradle. Nobody wanted me to awake, but in the search of light I forced myself through thousands of roots and crawled out of the ground. The sound of a rusted bell calls my name, and a red eye looks into my heart. Everything falls into darkness, and there is nothing I can do.
Under the gentle rain of regret, where the crushed ships go.
The bard becomes possessed and becomes an extension of Molag Bal, appearance and everything, and then he becomes the one to attack LeMay and turn her into the first vampire. On the way to LeMay, another familiar character visits us just to mock us, Sheogorath.
You are not Shazar, nor his prophet. You are just an imitation, a fake. Nothing but a pale beast of Sithis.
When did insanity overtake me? When did the reflection in the water turn into an ugly monster? Who am I? Where am I going? What do I seek?
Now, Sheogorath has always been in this story actually. He has always been hidden in plain sight, just observing the insanity because, you know, that's what he does. What strikes me most about this encounter is that Sheogorath goes really hard on the Bard, and to that extent Molag Bal. And he talks to them interchangeably, because at this point one is basically an extension of the other. And he tells Molag Bal that he's an idiot with nowhere near the power he thinks he has, while also telling the Bard that he messed up big time and that his madness will lead him to forget even who he is.
You knew that. You should have known. And now, everything is beyond oblivion! Is it not so? You don't even know who you are anymore! Even burnt by stone, you won't let your desire go. Must your soul burn on and on, without ever knowing peace?
Here, the Bard can either choose to say enough and attempt to forget all about this event, or he can keep committing to his mistake, going with the enough option, and this is what happens.
Your waking soul will forget all. And when it does, all will be as in a dream. Farewell, our forgotten sibling. Sleep once again.
Who was I? Where am I? This scorched journal told me nothing. I feel like I have lost something important. But now, it's all...
Wake up! Wake up! You have to wake up!
That's right, the Bard is actually Altano, or at least, Altano is the part of the Bard that wanted to forget and keep on dreaming. And thus the Dragon Break ends back in time, meaning that all that has happened will happen again in the exact same way. See, Dragon Breaks are not time travel. Everything that has happened will still happen in the exact same order. Altano, aka the Bard, will still join the Vigilants, he will still meet the Dragonborn, and he will still die, and at the end, he will still try to forget. If you choose to commit to your actions before Sheogorath, then he goes even harder on Molag Bal and the Bard.
As expected from Molag Bal, a beast furthest from Shazar. Just weak, just wicked, just ugly. Your black soul has finally reached Sithis. Welcome, our new sibling.
I am a coward who can only live in eternally repeating dreams. From the very beginning, it was my fate to be swallowed by the darkness I raised myself.
That Vigilant will be here soon. What is your command? Gladly. You can rely on me, my lord.
My name is Molag Bal, Prince of Domination and Enslavement, the one who burns his own soul and curses the world of the Divines. Everything repeats, even now, after I knew the darkness, after I overcame the darkness, after I died.
At this moment, the Bard fully realizes that he is a repeating fool reliving the same dream, just like Sheogorath told him, and he fully accepts his place as an extension of Molag Bal. That extension will come to be known as Bal, and he will continue to serve Molag Bal by tempting people like Maruk, Julius, Drozek, and even becoming steward of his own victim. And this is how this Dragon Break ends. And again, everything will repeat in the exact same order, but this time as Bal, not Altano. But what happens when the Bard stops committing to his failures and seeks to salvage what he has lost and find the redemption of Stendar?
Forest, Kyle's garden, release the twisted love, light down the funeral path, and weave the end of the dream.
Well, to find that, we need to go back and pick the lyre instead of the spawn after talking to LeMay.
Can you sing me the rest of the song? Yes, the end. It's such a sad and cruel story.
If while talking to her, we tell her that the song has no good ending and that they all just died in vain, and then pick up the lyre, this is what happens.
Oh, what a pity.
Once upon a time, when the Elder Gleam was still young, before it was trapped underground, the world was full of danger and wondrous magic. On that day I shed a single drop of blood on her brow. I only wished to give her a peaceful eternity, but instead, I cursed her with the agony of immortality. The tears of blood will never dry, and no sins will be forgiven. The stone, which led me to my fall, clothed itself in fire, and slowly scorched my body.
And there you have it. The bard understood his mistake in making a deal with Molag Bal and making LeMay mortal, and decided to cut his losses after LeMay became a vampire bound to suffering for all eternity. And to take her out of her misery, he stabbed her, but not before she ravaged the nearby camp of nomads, thus creating the first vampires. And wouldn't you know it, the one nomad that survived LeMay's attack was a man by the name of Laza.
How could you do this? Give them back. My family, my sister. Please, give them back. Curse you, monster of Cephas! Curse you! Curse you! Curse you! Oh, King. Why? Why won't you help us?
Well, well, well. How the turntables...
It is also kind of poetically tragic that the man who stabbed LeMay, the man who attacked LeMay, and the man who became LeMay's steward are the same person reliving the same dream in the same timeline, just in a different existence. The Dragon Break ends with Molag Bal asking the bard what his name is, and there is no canon answer to this. But all the responses are quite telling, as the bard is still within Molag's grasp, but he is not under his influence.
Well done. This is your reward. What will you do now? I see. I think you will find it is the same wherever you go. But if that is your will, no one will stop you.
He can still aim to eventually kill the god that tricked him and cursed his lover. And while he will eventually fail in that regard, going south and dying in the desert, he fails on his own terms. But what happens when the bard doesn't turn LeMay into a vampire? Well, that's where we get the final and true ending of Vigilant, as well as the only ending that breaks the cycle and sets our bard free from his endless dreams.
Can you sing me the rest of the song? Yes, the end. It's such a sad and cruel story. Then think of something beautiful. Promise?
Sometime later, her screams echoed across the fjords of Skyrim. I remember carrying her unconscious, violated body to the nearby camp of nomads. But she did not wake up again, and Nern lost a bright start of her life that day. Once upon a time, when the Elder Gleam was still young, before it was trapped underground, the world was full of danger and wondrous magic. But I will not bow down to the cruel fate. Someday, I know this suffering will pass and fade away like a morning fog. All the sins will be forgiven and all the blood washed away someday. Everything will be buried by the dust of history and become a part of the songs.
I am stretched upon your grave and will lie there forever if your hands were in mine. I'd be sure they'd not sever.
I don't understand. If you wanted she, she could have lived again. Why? Why did you refuse? Wait, you still haven't told me your name.
In my opinion, this cutscene is the best in the game. As I mentioned, the last question about the name has no canon answer, but I like it anyway. It gives the player a chance to identify the nameless Bard, and this feels like a final way of giving him closure even after his death. If the Dragonborn identifies the nameless Bard as simply the nameless Bard, then he gets the title Liberator, as he has finally helped the Bard accept his mistake and end his endless dream. If he chooses to identify him as Stendarr, the god they both once worshipped as Vigilant, and the god that also stopped Molag Bal, he gets the title Justicer, meaning judge. If the Dragonborn however gives the Bard his own name, then he gets the title of Successor, as through him and his actions, the Bard is now free. The Dragonbreak ends, and this time we no longer respawn in the past or in another part of the Endless Cycle, we just appear back in Aetherius, and this time Molag Bal's statue is completely broken, with no power over the realm or the Bard, and with no way of escaping Jigolak's Grey March. So yeah, that was Vigilant. So, recalling back, when I first played this mod, I was like a dog trying to watch Game of Thrones. I was just looking at the screen, not being able to make heads or tails of anything. Then, as I looked deeper into the lore of this mod, I found this extremely captivating story and these very well put together enactments of Elder Scrolls lore, such as the Rampage of Pelennor or the Attack of LeMay, or the Attack on LeMay, depending on which way you see it. I guess it's both. What I also realized kind of late was that the entire mod was essentially an overarching love story, but it's not cringy, so that's saying a lot. It's never on your face about it, but it doesn't shy away from it either. At the end, when you leave Aetherius, you actually find a reborn version of Campanera and Giovanni from Act 1. Again, I didn't talk about a lot of things because they really weren't relevant to the plot, or they just didn't fit the narrative I was making. So if you're making yet another Skyrim playthrough, this is definitely a mod worth having. I mean, god, I haven't even mentioned Janal or Mary.
For a hermit like me, dragons are the ultimate desire. I long to be like them. I always wanted to soar in the skies like them.
I'd say there is another act worth of content I just flat out skipped in Cold Harbor. I also know that a few of the things I mention in this video are somewhat contested, so if you want to be a soldier, the comment section is your battlefield and you can be whatever soldier you want. No one will stop you. And I understand that this mod isn't as obscure as the title of this video makes it out to be. It definitely has its cult following, much like all masterpieces, but whenever I see lists of Skyrim mods, this mod is usually overshadowed by either UI mods or graphic mods. And even in the adventure category, this mod feels like it doesn't get the attention it deserves for what it is. And I think the big reason for this, if you haven't been able to realize it already, is that this mod has a lot of adult themes in it. I tried my hardest to wishy-washy a lot of it for YouTube, but it's still there. But anyway, this video was extremely experimental and quite a step up from YTPs or the more meme-ish gameplay videos I usually make. But I had a lot of fun making it. My throat, however, did not have a lot of fun making it, as it is now burning. If you stuck around this far, thank you for watching. Video is over.